For a day in 2020, Western Sydney was the hottest place on Earth. Hotter than Death Valley and hotter than Sicily. This is even hotter than Coober Pedy, a town in South Australia where over half the residents live underground to beat the extreme temperatures. So how did Western Sydney find itself so hot? And why are experts saying this could happen to other towns across Australia again?
Many communities in Western Sydney and around the country are finding themselves heating up based on choices largely out of their control, and they're not sure what to do next.
This is Emma Bacon from Sweltering Cities, who talks about city design and the impact of heat on communities.
Places like Western Sydney just aren't built to cope with the sort of temperatures that we're now seeing. Temperatures over 50 degrees, and both the homes that we've built and the way we've designed our suburbs just aren't fit for purpose. Western Sydney can be 10 or 15 degrees hotter than Sydney's coastal suburbs or surrounding rural areas. Part of that is geographic, it's away from the sea breeze. You look at areas where lots of industrial development are, you see new houses, and often you've got those dark surfaces, you've got low insulation, and even houses without any eaves at all that aren't positioned to take the most advantage of the sun or the shade. When we've spoken to people who live in some of the newest suburbs in Western Sydney, they've told us that even if they wanted to put a tree in their little backyards, they'd feel like the tree was in tree jail. It's such a small area surrounded by buildings. These tiny backyards, the small verges, the large roads, what this means is we've got minimal tree cover or what we call permeable surfaces like soil, plants, and that makes the area extremely hot, a lot of urban heat island regions.
So you might be asking, what is the urban heat island effect? Well, it's a phenomenon where urban areas are much hotter than the surrounding natural environments. This is because hard surfaces and impervious surfaces absorb heat and radiate it back out into the surrounding atmosphere.
I think a lot of people underestimate the impact that having a dark roof on your house can have. If we're just looking at the temperature inside the roof, a dark roof can make the inside roof cavity 30 degrees hotter than a light roof on the same street. That means high energy bills, a hotter home for you and your family, but it also heats up the whole suburb. So if you've got a whole street worth of dark black roofs, it means the street temperature and the surrounding area is going to be hotter, which means that everyone's homes are going to be hotter, higher electricity bills, more difficult to cool, there's even less escape for people. So there's actually like a broader community impact. It's got so many urban heat islands that they've linked together to form an even larger area that we call an urban heat continent. We see the effect even bigger and hotter.
With climate change making heat waves longer, hotter and more frequent, and exacerbating the urban heat island effect, we need to be making conscious decisions about the way we lay out and design our cities. Unfortunately, a lot of new houses being built are not thermally comfortable or well regulated in the sense that they're causing the homeowner to run their AC all day and all night. This is really unacceptable when we're talking about a cost of living crisis, meaning people have to constantly use the energy and constantly keep paying for their AC.
When we're designing for new energy efficient, sustainable suburbs, we need to think about maximising that green cover, that green space, making sure there's airflow, making sure people have access to active transport, public transport, to minimise the car travel because that also heats up the area. All of these things don't just cool down a suburb, but they make them more livable as well. It's much nicer to walk down a street with beautiful trees, to be breathing in clean air, to be on a shady street on a hot day, as opposed to walking along and the hot gravel is radiating heat up at you, the sun is blaring down, there's trucks streaming by. We know that the choices for cool suburbs are choices for more livable and sustainable suburbs. Sometimes it feels like we need really big changes, but actually the solutions can be really simple.
We're witnessing a number of great initiatives being run by governments across Australia to help mitigate against the impacts of urban heat on their local communities. A great example is Blacktown City Council, who run cool refuges during days of extreme heat. These are particularly important for residents who can't cool themselves down in their own home, and in particular on days when there's brownouts that impacts the ability for people to run their AC during the day.
We need to support those communities to have safe suburbs, safe homes, and we need to make sure every suburb and home we design now is safe in a future climate. We need to improve our building standards. We should not be building more urban heat island suburbs. That means rules to make sure renters have heat wave safe homes and put cooling in our rental standards. It means upgrading all social housing and public housing to make sure that people who are living in these often really low energy efficiency buildings have cool, safe homes. We also need to make sure the communities have access to renewable energy, great public transport, so more people have access to alternative transport options.
An ideal city is somewhere that accounts for all people and communities. Somewhere where people can healthily and safely live, work and play.
The choices we make about how to build our cities now will decide how many people die in the heat waves of the future. We need to be building homes, suburbs, infrastructure, schools, hospitals to be as safe as possible in the extreme heat that we know is coming.
The Climate Council's new heat map tool shows us just how hot suburbs around the country could get by the year 2090 if we don't take the necessary action to cut carbon pollution this decade.
We need to turn off the oven and take serious climate action so we don't see Western Sydney or the whole country face those increasingly dangerous hot summers with those longer, hotter heat waves that put even more people at risk.
We need to get out of fossil fuels, and we need to make our communities safer from heat.
Check out the Climate Council's new heat map tool to find out how hot your suburb could be by 2090.